Rhythm guitar parts are sort of an art form, right? Like what chords are in the song, what voicings of the chords are you using, what's the strumming pattern, or is it finger picking? Is there some syncopation? You know, how there's a lot of stuff going on. Some of the best rhythm guitar parts also include some harmonic movement, right? Notes moving around over a single chord. In order to create parts like that, you have to have some level of understanding of diatonic harmony. Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today you will learn about diatonic thirds. Don't worry, I'll explain what they are, I'll show you how to find them on the guitar, and I'll also give you some practical examples of how to use them to create some harmonic movement in your rhythm guitar parts. And I'll give you some examples, some famous examples of how that works here in a second. Before we get started though, I do feel like I have to just cover a few terms. Now, you don't need to know all of this stuff. You can just look at these as pattern-based ideas and probably get a lot out of this. But for the folks who are like hanging on to the music theory side of things, I just feel like it's my duty to explain a few things. Diatonic. That means of a key. The word diatonic means of or from a key. So if you think about the key of A, it's all built from the A major scale. Those 7 notes sort of make up the fabric of the key, and you can build chords from those notes using stacking thirds, which I'm about to talk about. But diatonic means from a key, of a specific key. Any other notes are in a different key. They're diatonic to something else. Thirds are intervals, basically a measure of a distance between 2 notes. And specifically, thirds come in 2 flavors, the minor third and the major third. These are intervals. So the half step is the smallest interval, the whole step is the next smallest interval. A step and a half, 3 frets, is called the minor third. That distance, that interval, is called a minor third. 1 more fret up, 4 frets or 2 whole steps, is called the major third. The minor third and the major third are the intervals we use to build chords. So diatonic of a key, thirds, the intervals of thirds inside that key. That's diatonic thirds. One more thing, dyads. I'm going to show you these diatonic thirds. They're going to be dyads, and dyads are simply 2 notes played at once. So I know that's a lot of information. Like, would you just get to explaining things? Yes, I think I should do that. Let's go. Okay, diatonic thirds. We're about to reveal a tool that'll help you get that harmonic movement through your rhythm guitar parts. I'm going to use this thing I did on the top. But I want to give you a couple of other examples to show you that it's not just sort of like the way to create the regal Spanish sound or whatever it is. I just want to show you a few other things. If you're a fan of Herbie Hancock, a jazz keyboard player, this is the opening to Watermelon Man. These are diatonic thirds. Interesting. Here's an example from Van Halen, Running with the Devil, the verse part. These are diatonic thirds. Here's an AC/DC example. These are diatonic thirds right here. Those are diatonic thirds. There are many examples through a lot of other types of music. So I just wanted to show you that this isn't necessarily just the way to make that sound, but this is a mechanism that people use, that musicians use in other genres. So let's get started. I am going to use that example at the top just to show you how they unlock. It's going to be an easy way for us to unlock them. We're going to be in the key of E, and again, diatonic of a key. When you harmonize the E major scale, you get these chords. These are the only chords in the key of E. That's it. That's all you get. If you play any other chords, you're in a different key. But here they are, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, just using bar chords, how that lays out on the guitar. So here's E. Our 2 chord is F sharp minor. It's our minor bar chord. Our 3 chord is G sharp minor. 4 chord is A. 5 chord is B. 6 chord is C sharp minor. Then we've got this pesky little D sharp diminished chord, and then we're back to E. These are all the chords in that key. So in order to unlock the thirds, right, the diatonic thirds, they're inside these chords. I'm going to unlock them for you. If you don't know it already, the architecture of this chord in relation to E is as follows, as far as chord tones go. Root, 5, root, 3, 5, root. Root, 5, root, 3, 5, root. Those are the notes in relation to E, right? The thirds, the root, the thirds, and the fifths. That's how they play out in this bar chord shape. That architecture remains the same for this chord. Root, 5, root, flat 3, 5, root, etc., etc., etc. The architecture is exactly the same. If you just look at the D and the G string, and you take everything else away, you get these 2 notes. This is the root and the third of E. If you just play these notes, in other words, follow that architecture on the D and the G string, you get the diatonic thirds because you're building the same exact architecture for each chord, and they sound and look like this. There's your 1 chord. There's your root and flat 3 from the 2 chord. Here's the same architecture from the 3 chord. This is the 4 chord. This is major, so it's a little, so the shape is smaller. 5, 6, 7 root. Root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 root. These are the diatonic thirds. Really pretty. The interval of the major third, the root to the third, that third is very, very sweet. It's a sweet interval. Even if whether it's major or minor, it's very sweet sounding. It's just the nature of what thirds sound like. There they are. So, you may have learned something like that in a song somewhere. I just showed you this. It's a crime to let that stuff just get locked into this one thing. So I want to show you something else really quickly. In that top example, when I went to the 4 chord, I played a phrase that went like this. And back to E. But I'm not playing the diatonic third. I'm not playing the third of the E chord, right? Which is this. I ended here. But this looks like the thirds from the G sharp minor chord. Why does that work? I'll show you really quickly. I just want to tie a few pieces of information together to you. If this is the root and the third of E, if we climb up these diatonic thirds and just sort of like talk to ourselves about how these notes relate to E, watch what happens. Root, 3, 2, 4, right? Because they're just going up in order. This is the 3, 5. And if you think about it, there's an E triad right here. So here, this dyad, this diatonic third, stacked as a dyad, is the root and the third. Here, it's the third and the fifth. So I'm just going to leave that there. We don't have to hang out with that too long, but I just want to show you how these relationships are constantly moving. It's this type of realization of how those relationships work that'll help you keep this information and allow you to transpose it and use it anywhere else. Okay, now, it would be a shame if we just thought diatonic thirds exist on this string set and that's it, but they're everywhere on the neck, and I'm going to show you how to find them. If indeed this relationship is root 3 to the E, and this is the root, that should mean that wherever I find an E, I can build this entire thing. I mean, it's just mathematically the logical next step to believe. Here's our E. I'm going to take this E up an octave. This is E. I'm going to just take a gamble and go like this. It works there perfectly. Anywhere I find an E, this should work. Let's find one on the A string. A, B, C, D, E. It's there too. We've already found the A on the D string. That was our first example, right? Let's find one on the low E string. It's right there. So you can find this anywhere. Anywhere you find an E, you can just plop this whole thing down. This is how remarkable the design of this instrument actually is. It's incredible. I'm going to be just sort of on cloud 9 all day just talking about it. So hopefully you're excited about this too. Let's do this last sort of heavy task, which is find the A on the G string, because the G and the B string have that relationship all mixed up. Here's our G string. G, A, B, C, D, E. What used to look like this now has to look like this. And what used to look like this now has to look like this. So here they are. And you can see this little E chord right here. So, adjusting for the B string, we've just mapped that idea, diatonic triads, all over the neck for a single key, like that. We're just using octaves and just using the logic of the math itself, right? I'm telling you, this thing is incredible. Okay, one more thing, then I'm going to let you go. The blues in A. A7, D7, E7, back to A7. Those three chords, whether you know this or not, you will now. Each one of those chords is a dominant 7th chord and actually represents an entire key change every time you move. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into why that is, but dominant chords are built off the 5th degree of a scale, of another key. So, I'm going to use the AC/DC example. In A, looks like this. Little diatonic thirds on the G and the B string, moving around under this A7 chord. When we go to the D chord, even though this is a key change, I'm just going to move that up and play the same relationship here. Back to the A. Here comes the E, D, interesting. Each one of those is a key change, but I'm using diatonic information from the key that this chord comes from. I know that may sound confusing, but A, and then D, and then E, right? Here's why that works. Over the A chord, this is 3, 5. The next one is 4, 6, and the next diatonic triad is 5, 7, flat 7 from your A7 chord. That same relationship happens here over D. Right? It's the same harmonic relationship, even though these notes are from another key. So I'm just dropping that there. Hopefully that will sort of like frazzle your brain a little bit. We're just taking diatonic information from one key over a specific chord. When we move to the next chord, which happens to be in this case a key change, we just use that same diatonic information to create that harmonic movement. So I'm just trying to show you how expansive and how flexible this kind of idea is. Okay, diatonic thirds, one of probably many, many, many tools to get you started into thinking about how to create harmonic movement in your rhythm guitar parts. I gave you a few examples, some famous examples of thirds being used in the past, but there are others. You can use fifths, fourths, sixths. You can use different intervals, not just thirds, to create these types of parts. But the thirds are easy to see, they're sort of easy to find, and they're easy to move around the neck. And so they're a great sort of intro for this idea, to get this idea together. I've tabbed all this stuff out. So if any of this has sort of gone over your head, go over to Patreon, that's linked in the description below, and grab the tabs there. And any support on Patreon literally fuels this whole thing for me. It allows me to do this for a living, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you in advance. This is really the beginning to unlocking the secret of how to apply this in any context. You may have learned some guitar parts that have some harmonic movement, but if you only learned them in the context of that one song, they're locked in there. You can't unlock it and move it around. This video gives you the idea of how to use diatonic thirds as a tool, and then you can take that tool and move it around and use it over any chord, use it over any chord progression. I hope this ignites some curiosity into how this stuff works, because making really good rhythm guitar parts is a very important part about being a good guitar player. So I hope this excites you and ignites some curiosity, and I hope it's helpful for you. It has been for me. So have a good time with this, and I'll see you next time.